What's up, guys? We're back with the rating climb. We're 1051, and a couple of opening requests. Some people had asked for like King's Indian type of setup, so I'll go ahead and show you. If you want to play the King's Indian defense against e4, you got to start with d6. Then you play knight to f6. This is called the Pierts or the Perk, however you want to pronounce it. And you can kind of go into the King's Indian type setup from here. Now, it's not exactly the same because white hasn't really committed to like d4 and c4. And so sometimes you get some different positions. Speaking of different positions, that's an interesting move. I'm not sure what's going on there. Um, I don't think it's great because it blocks the bishop. Now, maybe white is planning on doing this, or they just want to use their queen with e5 right away. Not really sure about that one. I don't think we need to worry too much. I think I'll just continue with kind of the normal setup here, fianchetto the bishop and try to castle. And now we see d4. So very interesting approach by our opponent here. Let's play bishop g7. And, you know, you want to keep an eye on e5, but I'm not super concerned at the moment. Let's go ahead and castle. And now white plays, I don't know. I mean, seems like just a waste of time, but okay, I guess maybe white had some idea. I have no idea what it was. Okay, so how do we want to develop our pieces is kind of the question. Maybe I'll show you guys one of these setups. You can play c6, and you can kind of just really slowly expand on the queen side. So like b5 and a5 at some point, a6, b5. Yeah, white's probably going to attack us. It can lead to some pretty interesting positions. Let me go ahead and there's so many ways you can play this, and just trying to think, what do I want to do? Let's go ahead and put the knight here. It's kind of a flexible move. Doesn't like commit to too much. I could still strike with e5. I could still expand over here. I could still just kind of develop my pieces if I want. One of the things that happens a lot of times in these King's Indian type of setups is sometimes the bishop just has to wait. Just have to be patient for this guy, right? Because you can see there's not really a good place for me to develop it to. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. All right, let's see. Go ahead and put my queen on c7. Kind of just gets out of any pins here. Supports if we want to play e5. And a lot of times when you play this kind of setup, you're just sort of waiting. You're just kind of, you're not trying to make anything happen right away. You're playing very patiently and just slowly improve your position little by little. And at some point when you think it's a good time, you'll strike back at the center. So, you know, just kind of keep an eye on all of these moves. And when you think it's the right time, you can push forward. Of course, keep an eye on what happens if white pushes forward as well. But usually your position is so solid that you're going to have some response. So you can see the queen on c7 is supporting here. So by my count, we're just winning a pawn. So the only question would be, is there some sort of idea of like bishop f4 to pin the knight? But I can always take with check, so that doesn't work. That just looks like a bad move. It looks like a free pawn. So I'm not sure what the idea is. We're going to go ahead and take it. And this is a good example. Like at the lower levels, this is what happens a lot of times. You're just playing really solid, and your opponent might get impatient, and they'll make a move that's kind of questionable, and you just need to be ready to take advantage of that when that happens. So as we can see here, I'm just getting a free pawn. Okay, white is doing all kinds of crazy stuff here. They're not going to take it. They're just going to develop, which is fine. So I'm thinking we can just trade here. We can also push by and chase that knight away if we want. That doesn't look bad either, but I think I'll just go ahead and try to open things up. Maybe this bishop can become involved pretty soon here. Okay. So, first thing that I'm looking for is, do I have any tactics to win a piece? Because like queen e5 is a check. The bishop is loose. It's a hanging piece. It's not defended anymore. Now there is bishop to e3. But I don't think that I want to do that because then my queen is just sitting there. I mean, maybe it's fine. I can attack the bishop. I can play b5 or c5. I can play e5. I can play knight e5 and to let my bishop out. I can bring a rook over. There's so many moves, which is why these openings sometimes are tough to play, because you really have to consider a lot of options. You know, maybe I will play here, force the bishop back, and then play like knight to d5 to try to attack it. It unleashes my bishop, and if white doesn't trade, I'm probably just going to take here, which actually looks pretty good. So, yeah, in hindsight, I guess I will go for that line, because as far as I can tell, it forces bishop to e3, And then, like I said, knight to d5 looks like a nice way to unleash my bishop and put pressure on that pinned piece. Okay, I'm just scanning if I have any other moves that look better than that, but I think this looks like a pretty good approach. So let's go ahead, go here. Now on knight f3, it's tricky, but it looks like I can take here. Even though I lose my queen, I'll get white's queen with a fork at the end. So that looks good to me. So I don't think knight f3 is a move. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I have to give up that bishop, which is fine. Now I can probably take back this way. Also this way. Which one's better? I don't know. What I like about this one is that I immediately put pressure on something. Also makes way if I want to start pushing this e-pawn down the board. This way, my queen stays here, which I don't really know if that's where I want my queen. So I'm going to take with the queen. I just feel like the queen is going to be a little awkward there. Okay, so castles. So now I'm thinking of a couple things. Like I mentioned, pushing this pawn maybe just to gain some space, get some control over some more central squares. But I'm also thinking about it's probably time to activate this bishop now. So I want to think about where can I move my knight to and where can I follow up with my bishop. I'm thinking knight here, and it almost looks like there's potential for some nice tactics. So basically what I'm thinking is, okay, here's white's king. It doesn't have a lot of pieces defending it. Like, yeah, there's a knight and a bishop sitting here, but I have a bishop, I have a queen, I have a knight, I have a bishop. If I can coordinate these to launch an attack on the king, that looks pretty good. And I think knight to e5 is going to allow me to do just that. So here's what I'm looking at. Bishop takes h3, captures, c5. And maybe I play c5 first, but in this example, I'm just looking at it here. c5, once the knight I was thinking moves over here, I can hop in. Okay, now white has defended that again. So maybe it doesn't quite work. But I'm still thinking through that. The other thing I can do is just play c5, make the knight move, and then bam, bishop goes to f5. That also looks really good. So this is a good example of how this bishop kind of sat here for most of the game. We're on move 15, but now it's time to get it out, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to play c5. I'm just going to like scan for some tactics. Is it a big mistake for some reason? There is knight b5 here. Yeah, I think I would have time to deal with that. Okay, I'm just, keeping an eye out for this fork. But because I'm going to be playing bishop f5 with tempo on the queen, it's going to give me time to then make a rook move, maybe rook over here or something that deals with a fork. So I'm not super concerned. Also, I'm looking at this idea of sacrificing. Knight comes in with check, takes. Yeah, it doesn't look like it quite works. This knight wasn't here, it would be a great idea, because once that knight comes in, it would be bad news for white. But in this case, I think white's got enough defensive pieces. So we'll probably just go with bishop f5 next. And then what? I don't know. Looks like this d3 square is weak. I've got a knight, I've got a bishop, I've got a queen. Maybe bishop here and bishop here. Sorry, bishop here and bishop here. Forking this if the knight actually goes there. Of course, if the knight goes here, I could still go bishop f5. And then I might play like b6. Ooh, c4. I wasn't expecting that move. Okay. What I'm wondering is, can I just take it? If the queen takes, we can trade, and then I can win my piece back. So I'm essentially winning a pawn. I'm already up one pawn, so I'd be up two pawns. I'd go into an endgame up two pawns. That seems pretty good. The other option is if the knight takes, again, I could take here either way, win back my piece, and so I am essentially winning a pawn just by capturing that. I could also just retreat, but why would I retreat when I can win a pawn? So just making sure there's not like any crazy in-between moves that I missed. I don't think so. This is super common in the King's Indian. You always want to be scanning for opportunities to use your bishop in a tactic like this, right? So we sacrifice the piece, but it unleashes the bishop. We're going to get it right back a few moves later, and essentially we win a pawn. All right, super common idea in these King's Indian types of games. Okay, so there we lost our piece, but like I mentioned, now we can take this one. So I don't think I want to trade that bishop. I think I'd rather just take with the pawn and keep this guy here because it sort of defends my king. And so I'm happy to take this way. And probably we can follow up with e5, just get both of those pawns in the center. Yeah, so white's kind of piling on there, but I think e5 makes a lot of sense. Scanning if I have any other moves, but I really like the way e5 looks. So let's go ahead and play that. And then I'm going to turn my attention towards this bishop probably. Bishop f5, bishop e6 is what I'm thinking. Both of those moves would be with tempo, attacking some of white's pieces. Okay, b3 is played, so it does defend the knight. So this no longer really attacks anything. So I'm thinking maybe now we play bishop f5 to gain that tempo. That looks pretty good to me. So let's go ahead, develop with tempo. And now we're ready to bring our rooks maybe behind these pawns, maybe to the open file. I'm not sure if I want to put them here like this or here like this. Let's see where white's going to put the queen, and then maybe I'll make that decision. Okay, queen to e2. I'm actually wondering what happens if I go here, because it attacks the bishop. I no longer am pinned. It also pins the bishop. It can't move where I take the queen. The only issue is, what about f3? Attacks my queen. What do I do against f3? Looks like I wouldn't be able to win the piece, but it's kind of a weakening move. Potentially weakens the king side on the dark squares. So am I okay with that, or would I rather just move a rook? Not sure. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go with this move, because I lose some time by going there. f3, then I have to waste a move going back with my queen. And it's a question of, is that a weakening move or not? I mean, it kind of is, but I don't see a way to take advantage of it right away. So I think instead I'll just go for the rook move. Also, I'm getting low on time. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. And so this is kind of a safe move that I can play pretty quickly. Same thing like rook d8 next move probably. Can't really go wrong unless I'm falling for a tactic. You can't really go wrong with bringing your rooks to the center behind your passed pawns, right? Okay, and our opponent plays f3 anyway. And like I said, I'm just going to go ahead, bring the rook over, and we're kind of just supporting these pawns, getting ready to potentially push them forward if we can. Wow, bold move by our opponent. So I guess we retreat. I'm going to go here. The idea of either pinning the knight, okay, or going here and creating some threats along this diagonal. Let's go ahead and set that up. Now white has to be careful. I did look at this, but of course it's very well defended, so I'm not concerned. Okay. I think what I'm going to do now is actually even looking at sacrificing the queen here, because this pawn could push down. Maybe it's not good enough, and maybe I don't really need to do that. So let's just play like a simple move like this, unleash the pawn on the bishop. And we do have to start playing faster. So down to a minute, I'm going to just make some quick moves. They might not be the best moves, but I'm going to make some quick moves. Now that I've shut down my bishop, I think what I'm going to do is actually look to relocate it, maybe over here, where it can actually do something. I'm also thinking maybe I just go here, trade this off, make it a little bit simpler on myself. I don't have to worry about knight forks anymore, and we get closer to the end game. Because I'm ahead 2 pawns, end games should be pretty easy for me, right? So trades make a lot of sense. So I'm thinking about that. My bishop's pretty strong though, so that's why I'm kind of torn. Like, do I really want to do that? But I guess white's knight's also pretty strong there as well. Bishop c5, like a pretty nice move as well. Okay, yeah, I think let's go ahead and do that. So we're lined up on the king, threatening like d3 with check. And I might even play b5 just to get rid of that knight that way. I can keep my bishop and make it leave that outpost. If it goes over here, I'll just tuck my bishop back. Okay, so I get control of that diagonal and also stop anything that the knight's trying to do. Bishop to b4 is a threat here, so I'm looking at that. And, you know, even though I'm winning, our opponent is doing a pretty nice job of defending. Pretty good move there. Let's play, let's go here and attack it this way, I guess. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and trade it. I'm going to put my pieces on squares of the opposite color of the bishop, so I don't have to worry about any tactics there. Also, keeping everything defended is kind of important. Let's go here again, recreate this. Maybe queen a2 would have been a good move, but when you're low on time, you want to just play those solid moves that you can like pretty much guarantee are going to be good moves. I'm keeping my pieces for the most part defended. Creating batteries is a lot of times a good thing. How else can we improve my position? At some point, I'm going to have to start pushing the pawns. I can't just wait forever until I run out of time. So go ahead and put my king here just to kind of defend some of these weak squares. And then it might be time to start pushing. Well, that's a little bit of a risky move, but I need to make something happen. So I'm going to expose my king under the, you know, the benefit is that I get the pawns rolling, and I can even actually now like do something like this and attack white's king. There you go. They didn't see the pin. And here, you know, I've played a lot of speed chess, so like some of my blitz chess skills are coming in handy, right? Like not everybody who's rated 1,000, 1,100 is going to be able to play so quickly and still play good moves. So that's just something that, you know, I have a lot of practice playing fast chess, so I'm able to play these good moves so quickly. I'm going to go target this pawn next, I think. But yeah, I mean, our opponent put up a good fight there at the end. Definitely put up a good fight. Not a ton of mistakes. They played really weird. They played really weird because in the opening it was like Queen E2. I don't know what was going on, and then he just sort of like moved it around over here, and then again it was just like, okay, here's a free pawn for you, and then they kind of played really well. Like they noticed most of the tactics, played good moves, played a tricky move. It still lost a pawn, but tricky move, you know, good move, I would say. Good move. Like lots of good moves here. Just defending very nicely. And then, yeah, I mean, they didn't really make any huge mistakes until that queen right here. Queen pin. So another example of how like 1,000 rated players, you see all types of 1,000 rated players, right? Here's somebody who wasn't great at the opening, lost some pawns, but they were pretty good at tactics, pretty good at defending, right? Pretty good at holding on and fighting back. And so we had to, you know, play under time pressure at the end to get the win. So anyway, let's play one more game for this video. I've had a headache like all morning, and so I'm not going to play too many games today because we'll probably lose. All right, we got black again. Let's play. Let's see. Let's play something different. Let's play the Scandinavian this time. Ah, they push by. So when they push by, basically what you want to do is just play c5, and it's kind of like you played a French defense where you can attack here, except you didn't lock in your bishop. So it's a good version of a French defense essentially because you can just bring your bishop out whenever you want. This, I don't really know what that is. A lot of times in these types of situations, I'll just push by and be happy with my pawn that's very annoying and stopping some natural development. So I think this is a good setup. Notice I can, for the most part, develop pretty normally, and this actually looks kind of like target to me, whereas my pawn is nicely defended. Okay, so how do we take advantage of this? Of course, I'm looking at queen moves. Queen b6 attacks here. It's pretty easy to defend. Queen a5 check. Probably something like this. Again, pretty easy to defend. Bishop to f5 and maybe knight b4. We can attack that. Okay, I don't know if I like that. f6 trying to undermine this. Knight to f3 probably just defends. What about just like queen c7? Just say knight f3, then f6. Queen to e2 would be an awkward move. Or queen c7, knight f3. What if I would play like bishop g4? Basically what I'm trying to do is, what's the best way to attack this weakness? Like I can see that it's a weakness. And I've already kind of attacked it a little bit. What's the best way to follow up? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I do like that. Now you have to be careful when you play moves like this because you're asking to be attacked. But in this case, the bishop's undefended. If I go here and e6 happens, I'm just taking the bishop. Yes, there's going to be a check here, but I don't really care. I can just recapture. Yeah, so I do like the look at that. I am going to play queen c7 and see how white responds to this. Now, I have to be careful, like I mentioned. If this bishop ever gets defended by any move of white, knight e2, queen f3, queen d2, I have to understand that e6 is a very powerful threat. The issue is, if white does that right now, I'm simply going to take the pawn first. I would put myself into a pin, but think I would be okay. Okay, queen a4, interesting move. Decides to pin my knight. So bishop d7 is the obvious move that pops in my head right away. Just break the pin, develop a piece. I can castle if I need to. Then we will probably see knight to f3. Do I have a tactic? Unleashes the bishop. I think I would. So yeah, bishop d7 looks like a very logical move to me. Ah, what about e6? Remember I was telling you guys about e6? Now it's different. If I take this, check, I still win a pawn. Then my king is on d7. Am I okay with that? Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. It's actually pretty safe on d7 because the center is locked up. There's no open files, you know, for pieces to get through. So I think we'd be okay. All right, so we've made the queen go back, and now it looks like we can take this pawn for free. Now, before I take it, I'm going to make sure I'm not getting myself into trouble because I'm putting myself into a pin. So what I want to ask myself is, how is white going to follow up and attack my knight in that situation? Knight to f3 is the obvious move. I would simply take it with check, which is important. I don't lose my queen, and then I would have time to move my queen after that, and I'm up a pawn. So that looks pretty fine. The other move might be like queen e2 or queen h5, both of which attack my knight. So how am I dealing with that? And on either one, I think I would take here again with check, and whatever happens, then I would follow up and take the bishop because it's undefended. So in both of those situations, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's fine. So I am going to take the pawn. But you got to be careful before you take pawns like this to put yourself in a pin. You have to make sure your opponent doesn't have a good follow-up. Okay, what are they doing? They're defending their bishop. That's actually a very good move because now all those tactics where I can like sacrifice my knight with check, they don't work anymore because I don't have that follow-up capture on the bishop. So that's a pretty good move. But what I think I can do is actually just trade my bishop for it. And it sort of renews all those threats. And again, I'm probably going to follow up with this and take the bishop. Okay, so we already kind of talked about it, but knight takes d3 check. If either of these pieces recapture, I'm simply taking the bishop. The only concern with that is after bishop takes, queen to a4 check is a very annoying move. Very annoying move because I don't have a way to block it, which means I would have to move my king. And my king's going to be stuck there. Which is not the end of the world, but do I have something better? I could play like e6 and just bring my bishop to d6 to defend my knight. And on check, I would have a nice little tactic, so that could work. Oh, there's also queen c6 right now. An interesting move. If the bishop takes, I could take the rook. But again, queen to a4 check, super annoying move. I don't like that. Do not like that move at all. Basically, I think what I'm going to do is either play e6, the idea of bringing my bishop here, or I'm going to go for this trade now, win the pawn, take the bishop, and then just try to survive after my king goes here. Which really doesn't look super dangerous, because white's king is not safe either. Let's say white went like knight a3, trying to bring the knight in. What would I do? I'd bring the queen back here and sit it on b6 to kind of defend some things. Yeah, I think I see enough defensive options. It is a tricky position because I could just bail out of all this shenanigans by just playing e6, bishop d6. Maybe is the better option. I'm gonna go for it. I think it exposes white's king as well. So we're just gonna get an interesting game. There's gonna be tactics for both sides, but I'm okay with that. But I mean, we're only on move 9 here, and you can see already this is a very tricky position. And in a longer game, I would definitely think through this more. What's gonna happen after check? I move my king. What are the ways that white could potentially attack me? They don't see it. So I caught a break there. And I think I'll play maybe knight to f6, because then on queen here I can just block with my knight. And I don't have to lose castling rights. I'm also just checking, are there any tactics? Any of these pieces hanging, but I don't think so. I could throw in this check if I wanted to. Actually, it's not a bad idea, because if I get a queen trade, I'm happy, because I'm up some pawns. If the bishop tries to block, I have d3, and white's in trouble. And if the king moves, then the king can't castle. So yeah, I think I will. Oh, and on either of these moves, we have like f5. Yeah, so I think I will throw in this move. I still want to play knight f6, but I'm seeing an opportunity here. Okay, I think that's a mistake. f5, I believe we win a piece, don't we? Yeah, it looks like we just win a piece with f5. We'll go ahead and play that. We still have to deal with queen a4 check, but I think I'll just run this way. Get away from the queen. The knight can't move, right? Because it's pinned. And so we're going to just take that next move. It's not going to be simple. If white wants to, they can castle and then, you know, bring a rook over and start trying to attack my king. But I think they're just running out of pieces. Once I get my knight on f6, maybe g6, bishop g7, bring my rook over, I'm totally fine. f4, did not think about that move. That's actually a decent move. I could take it, or let's see, if I take it, then the knight is free to move somewhere. Or I could just go back. And I get the piece next. I think I will do that. I want the piece. I want to get rid of that knight. So we're just going to keep the pin. Sorry, we're going to keep the pin. Take it next move. And notice I'm trying to play a little faster, even though I still have 3 minutes. I'm sensing that there's going to come a moment in this game where I'm going to have to probably like defend my king from a little attack maybe here. And I want to just leave myself some time to do that properly. So that's why I'm trying to quickly get past this part of the game where I can capture the knight. And then we'll move on and try to consolidate our king and get our king to safety. All right, that's kind of what I expected. Let's go ahead and take this guy. And like white could start, you know, yeah, exactly. Could bring a rook over and I have to figure out what I'm going to do here. I think the simplest thing is to just push. Use my pawns, just block off everything. It does open up the bishop, but I think that's better than allowing a rook into the game right now. But also play knight to f6. Which develops a piece. It looks pretty good too, actually. But there might be some sort of sacrifice, and then I lose that. Yeah, I don't think I want to allow that. Let's play e3. Just shut down that rook. Very difficult now for white to figure out how to get the rook through all my pawns, right? So I think that's a good move. And probably we'll play knight to f6 next. And like, by the way, pawn is over here. I'm not worried about that. I already have enough pawns. Like, I want to focus on my king. Not even just pawns. I have an extra piece now. So I'm going to focus on my king. I'm not even touching that. I'm going to just try to defend here. So I think one of the best ways to do that is bringing my knight to f6. Controls a lot of these light squares around my king and starts to get my pieces into the game. Okay, rook here. Maybe it wants to come over there. Not a bad idea. I think I'm going to play g6 to let my bishop out. Other moves would be maybe queen c6, offering a queen trade, and then trying to play e6 and let my bishop out this way. It's a tricky position. Could be attacking my pawn. I just noticed that. Which, kind of supporting the pawn chain. Alright, so maybe I will play queen c6 here. Then you can trade and take that. I don't know if I like... Yeah, it's fine, because I'm up a piece. So a queen trade would be great. We'll play queen c6. I think if white is smart, they're just going to go back. And then I'm probably going to play g6. Trying to get my king safety here. Okay, they do go for the queen trade, which is great for me. Because I'm up a piece. Even though I'm losing a couple pawns here, it's not really a big deal. Alright, so got to get my pieces out quickly. I'm going to play e6. Let the bishop out here. I'm going to play... let's play bishop b4. I think I will. Because it's with tempo. And black has to deal with that. I guess they could play rook c7 check. That'd be a good move. Yeah, that would be a solid move. Because I can't run this way. Okay, they didn't see that one. So now, let's go ahead and go here. And I'm trying to trade. I'm also trying to just activate my pieces. And I don't want to spend a lot of time. So I'm trying to avoid like super complicated, tricky lines. I'm looking for like simple ways to simplify. And lucky for us, our opponent blunders the rook. Classic example of you're trying to flag your opponent and you don't take time to make a good move. The best way to flag your opponent, guys, by the way, flag your opponent means make them run out of time. The best way to flag your opponent is to play good moves. Because they're going to have to think to play good moves as well. If you just try to play quickly, if they're not good moves like we just saw, the game is very easy for me. Even though I only have a minute, it's super easy for me. Look at this. I'm about to get another queen. And white can basically resign now. Yeah, there's a random check here, but okay, they didn't see that, so I'll just take this. And, yeah. Pretty straightforward now. Well, here, bring the queen in, threaten the checkmate. All right, so our opponent played fairly well. Made a couple mistakes early on, you know, and it got very tricky though with that, you know, attacking that pawn on e5. And I knew that was going to happen because I was putting my queen into a pin. I was also delaying my development, not castling. So I kind of knew that that was a risk, and we saw that. But as long as you go about it the right way, you can get away with stuff like that, which is kind of what we saw here. We got the piece, and then we consolidated our king, and luckily we did get the mistake. I think here, if white would have played a queen back here with the idea of potentially swinging over here at some point and maybe double up the rooks, might have been a little bit more challenging for us. But anyway, I hope that helped you guys. I'll see you next time. As always, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.